I want to get the views now of a Nobel Prize-winning economist who spent his career studying the ways that governments can boost economic growth. Edmund Phelps is currently an economics professor at Columbia University, joins us live now from New York. And, well, I just want to pick up on that consumer spending data that we were just talking about there, unexpectedly dropping in June for the first time in almost 2 years. When can we expect this to change? When can we expect a pickup in spending in the U.S.?
Well, I think that might be a long time in coming. I think the consumers are telling us that they're very nervous about the future. I think it has to be said that the past few weeks in Washington, D.C. have been a bit of a travesty. They finally put together an agreement of sorts, but the $2.4 trillion added up over 10 years is just a drop in the bucket when you've got a public debt that's heading towards 12, 13, 14 billion dollars, and we got a level of entitlements out there that might be something like, oh, nobody knows really, but something like $40 trillion. So we've only just scratched the surface of our problem, and that's very, very scary.
So it sounds like you don't have any confidence that this deal that is in place, that the Senate is about to ratify, will do anything meaningful to bring down the deficit, expected to reach, what, 7.5% of GDP in 2012?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's not meaningful. I think it might be the beginning of a long process of waking up to reality and taking a series of steps. But we don't have much time, because during this period in which it's obvious that we've hardly got started in dealing with the mountain of entitlements and the public debt, when we've hardly got started, we're so vulnerable to an exchange rate crisis, a downgrade in the credit rating, skyrocketing interest rates. There's a lot to worry about out there.
With so much to worry about, Mr. Phelps, can you tell me then what the government's priority should be right now? Because the deficit-cutting plan doesn't go far enough, but on the other hand, all this is playing out against a backdrop of very weak growth and, of course, high unemployment.
Yeah. Well, it's a dilemma. That's for sure. And I guess dilemmas don't really have solutions, do they? You're between the two horns, and you're going to get gored. I think we simply have to end these deficits. I don't mean tomorrow. I don't even mean necessarily in the next 12 months or 24 months. But we have to take very clear, bold steps toward ending these enormous budgetary deficits and getting on a road towards budgetary surpluses in a few years' time. That we have to agree to do that. And I know that the Keynesians don't think that the world will come to an end if we terminate the deficits, but we have to do that if we're not going to renege on $40 trillion worth of entitlements, and I don't think that would be a good idea. And of course, the supply-siders are going to say that the world will come to an end if we raise just even a handful of tax rates a little bit, and that's quite crazy too. We can't solve all our problems just with expenditure cuts. We have to have additional revenues, and that will require closing loopholes and raising tax rates.
How difficult is that going to be? Because, you know, you've got both the Conservatives and the Liberals not pleased with parts of the deal. But, you know, a lot of analysts saying, look, the Republicans are the winners here because there are no tax increases. Now Obama has tasked his congressional committee with looking for loopholes in the tax system and tax reform. But how difficult is it going to be to raise taxes going forward?
I think it's just going to take a huge amount of education. That takes time, that's costly, that's painful, but I think we have to do it. I think we have to convince the Republicans that we're not going to be able to climb this entitlements mountain of 40 trillion or whatever it is without more tax revenues. And so it's going to be hard, but they're not stupid, and they're going to see, I think, eventually the wisdom of accepting higher tax rates.
Mr. Phelps, you used some very graphic language there. You said that they're between the two horns and they're going to be gored. So, in your opinion, fiscal consolidation now has to come first. Growth isn't what it should be, but okay, they need to prioritize this to avoid being attacked in the markets.
Well, not only that, but also to avoid depriving older people of the Social Security support in their old age and the medical care support that they were expecting. A lot of Americans haven't saved very much, unfortunately. I'm myself not a great saver, but and as a result, a lot of Americans are very dependent upon Social Security and Medicare. And some are also dependent upon Medicaid. So it's just, sure, we can trim a bit, but I think it's unthinkable to suppose that we're going to cut Medicare by 30 or 40% or 50%. That should be off the table. So what else is there? I think we need higher tax rates.
Yeah, and well, it's interesting. You emphasize that many Americans are extremely dependent on these entitlement programs, Medicare and Medicaid. But on the other hand, do you think that with the onset of this crisis, we could be entering a new phase now where Americans actually start to save more so that they're not so dependent on these entitlement programs? And could that potentially make it easier for the government to raise taxes?
I think there's a lot of merit in what you're saying. I think the man in the street it has come around to recognizing that he or she has to do more private saving, and you just mentioned in your report that household saving is up sharply in the last month. If the man in the street can see this, I imagine that the man in the street will also see that we have to do some public saving too. We have to have the government saving, not just spending like a drunken sailor all the time.
Okay, Professor Edmund Phelps, wonderful to talk to you. I'd love to speak to you again. Thank you so much, Professor Edmund Phelps.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed this.
Sure thing. Right. Come on again.